Occupational English Test. Practice Test 1. Listening Test. This test has 3 parts. In each part, you'll hear a number of different extracts. At the start of each extract, you'll hear this sound. You'll have the time to read the questions before you hear each extract, and you'll hear each extract once only. Complete your answers as you listen. At the end of the test, you'll have 2 minutes to check your answers. In this part of the test, you'll hear 2 different extracts. In each extract, a health professional is talking to a patient. For questions 1 to 24, complete the notes with the information you hear. Now, look at the notes for Extract 1. Extract 1. Questions 1 to 12. You hear a physiotherapist talking to a patient called Ewan Hunt. For questions 1 to 12, complete the notes with a word or short phrase. You now have 30 seconds to look at the notes.
Hi there, Mr. Hunt. It's good to see you again. Just to reassure you that I've received your file from Dr. Patel and her letter as well, okay?
Thank you. It's really good to see you too.
Oh, happy belated birthday for yesterday. Am I right in thinking you just celebrated your 60th?
Yes, thank you.
Did you do anything nice?
They made a huge fuss at the restaurant where I work. I kept telling them that I'm too old for all of that, but they weren't having it.
All right. What do you do?
I'm head chef of an Italian on Maple Street. We serve authentic cuisine. You should try it.
I might do just that. So, you've been referred to me to help you manage your condition, and it says here you've been experiencing quite a few symptoms, is that right?
That's right. I've got COPD, probably from all that lighting up I do all the time. I told Dr. Patel about the coughing already, but I suppose the main thing is that it happens a lot more now. Worse still, now I have phlegm too. It's quite disgusting, kind of yellow, green. You already know about the wheezing. That's probably the worst of the 3.
Well, I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, but you do know what I'm going to say, don't you?
Course I do. I've heard it all before. You're going to ask me to give up the facts. But it's not that easy, you know? I've been doing it since I was 16.
Why did you start, if you don't mind me asking?
No, I don't mind. Couple of lads on the estate reckoned it was the coolest thing since the advent of the wheel. Once they were doing it, everyone followed suit, so I guess you could say that I was peer-pressured into it, like. Haven't looked back since, really.
I understand. It says here that you attended sessions at the clinic. Didn't they help?
It wasn't sessions. I actually went to a special smoking cessation clinic in Finland for a bit. Cost a pretty penny too, but at the end of the day it didn't work.
Sorry to hear that. I'm trying to think of the best way to help you now. What's your day-to-day like?
Really, I'm mostly fine. I suppose that I do have one gripe. I get a bit breathless and I'm finding it hard to keep up my social life. I've always found the rush at work difficult, like when diners come in on the evenings and the weekend and everything in the kitchen is intense. But now, even when I'm lifting pans from one end of the kitchen to the other, it's tough. Also, I can't do the things I love anymore, like hiking. Used to go every weekend, but now I get breathless just thinking about it.
Mr. Patel has suggested I can prescribe you with an inhaler if you feel it would help. You can take it as and when you need.
That sounds good.
You'd need to take 1 to 2 puffs a day, as and when you feel the breathlessness coming along. You can't take any more than 4 puffs in any 24-hour period, okay?
Understood.
There's another thing I've been asked to talk to you about. There's a procedure that you could try called endobronchial valve insertion. You've been identified as a potential for it.
Endo what? I can't even say it. What's that?
It's a relatively risk-free procedure to insert a tiny valve into your lungs.
I think I'll pass on that one if you don't mind. You hear all kinds of horror stories of people dying on the OR table these days, especially now that our hospitals are so stretched for staff.
Not a problem. The other thing I suppose is just to echo Dr. Patel's advice about weight loss to you. Happy to show you a few exercises that I think you'll enjoy as much as you did your other activities. Then I guess we can pick up again in 2 weeks' time. See how you're...
Extract 2. Questions 13 to 24. You hear a nurse talking to a patient, Shauna Burke. 4 questions 13 to 24. Complete the notes with a word or short phrase. You now have 30 seconds to look at the notes.
So, I've been told that you're particularly worried about your general health of late, mainly because of your job. Is that correct?
Yes, it is, Doctor. I'm 28 and as a model, that's practically near retirement. It's so important for me to look my best for shoots and commercials, but I've been noticing weird things happening on my face that I thought I'd get checked out.
When you say weird things, what do you mean?
Like this, these dark shadows on my eyes, especially on the lid. It's really wearing me out. I've been feeling this way, this extreme tiredness, for as long as I can remember now, and it's not just my mood. I've lost a lot of weight recently too. I know what you're thinking, it's every model's dream.
No, I wasn't thinking that.
A lot of women would give me a slap if they knew I was having a moan over losing 20 kilos in a month without even trying. But you know what? I'd give my right arm to go back to my normal look. Fresh-faced, bright eyes. Right now, I look a right state.
I don't think that at all, Miss Burke, but I would like to investigate this for you. It's possible that you've come down with something, and I'd like to give you some treatment and get you back to your normal self, okay?
Thank you.
Would you tell me when you started noticing these symptoms?
I really don't know. I've been working a lot lately. Been booking a lot of domestic work in London and sometimes overseas too. When I got back from France last month, on or around the 11th I think, I just found my day-to-day just that much harder. For example, I usually love the hustle and bustle of my job, the last-minute calls, the late nights, and the constant after-parties. I just jump in the Merc and away I go. But recently I've been finding it super tough to drive. I thought maybe it's because I'm on the other side now, but it's more than that. When I'm behind the wheel, I feel a little spaced out, like disoriented, not knowing where I'm going or how I'm going to get there. You're looking at me like I've grown another head. I must sound so silly.
Not at all. I'm just thinking about what you've told me, how best I can help. Do you know if anyone in your family has been through anything like this?
Not that I know of.
Okay, you mentioned that your job can be very social. Do you smoke or drink?
I don't smoke, and I only drink when I'm out with people I know and trust. There are way too many scary stories of handsy photographers for me to get plastered with people I don't know.
Sounds like you've got a really good head on your shoulders there. Now, Miss Burke, I have to ask, because there's no indication on your personal medical history either way, but because you mentioned drastic recent weight loss, would you tell me about your diet?
Sure. I eat pretty well, if that's what you're wondering. I'm vegan, and so my diet is pretty healthy. I will occasionally eat out at a Frankie and Benny's, for example, but you wouldn't catch me dead at a McDonald's. I've managed to stay off junk food since I was very little. I used to be bulimic when I was 14, but after the counselling, everything is okay, and I've had what I think is a really healthy attitude to food.
I'm glad to hear that.
So, any idea what's wrong with me, Doc?
We'll need to run some tests to confirm things, Miss Burke. I don't want to say anything that I'm not sure of. We'll run a blood test today, and I'll call you in for others within the week, after we've received the results. In the meantime, I'm worried that you're not getting enough sleep. Do you think you could set up and stick to a routine?
Like a sleep schedule? Yes, I've done that before and it actually worked.
I'm glad to hear that. At least that would help you get some well-earned rest while we're trying to get to the bottom of all of this.
That is the end of Part A. You now have 2 minutes to check your work. Part B. In this part of the test, there are 6 short extracts relating to the work of health professionals. For questions 25 to 30, choose answer A, B or C, which you think best fits according to what you hear. Question 25. You hear 2 nurses talking about a plan for a citywide drive. Now read the question.
In order to commemorate World AIDS Day, Marvin asked that we organise a citywide drive.
Wow, that sounds exciting. So what exactly do we have to do? It's not actually a drive in a car, is it?
No, the 2 main goals are to test and educate. So I thought we could visit some local colleges, universities and businesses. We could host info sessions and a Q&A. Then we could follow it up with some voluntary tests and or impromptu counselling if need be.
I'll check my inventory for disposable test needles. How about you work on PowerPoint slides for the presentation?
I'll get right on that. It should be done within the next few days, hopefully, leaving me with enough time to work on what I'm actually going to say to the crowd during these World AIDS Day info sessions. Gosh, it's such a buzz connecting with our local community like this.
Question 26. You hear a conversation between a pharmacist and her co-worker. Now read the question.
Would you please help me sort these medications? Some of them have expired and now they're all mixed up.
Sure. Shall I start with A to H? And you can do I to Z.
Yes, that sounds like a plan. Thank you so much, Kate. And again, I'm sorry to have to pull you in over the weekend like this.
That's okay. I wouldn't have been doing much anyway, just helping out with my dogs. One of them had a nasty fall and we've had to get her a new collar.
Oh, ouch. You haven't left her alone, have you?
No, my partner's looking after her whilst I'm here. I know it's urgent and that we're short-staffed. What with Luis not being here again and all.
It's the third time this month, and I am really sick of it. No one else has been away as much, and it's driving me around the bend how much extra we have to do around here these days.
Question 27. You hear a team briefing where overall performance is being highlighted. Now read the question.
Thank you all for coming. I'll make this brief, shall I? My department has noticed an increase in the number of absences on the ward of late, and it is causing us some concern. This is a hospital, and when we're short-staffed, patient care suffers. With the HQC breathing down our necks, it's not something that we can continue to have happen. We are considering taking drastic measures in order to protect our patients and our reputations, and that may just include terminating frequent absentees.
Surely, that's a little harsh.
Well, it's a serious matter, and despite several disciplinaries, we've concluded that talking to them hasn't worked.
If I may offer a suggestion, I think that right now, it's a little too easy to take leave.
What do you mean?
Well, at the moment, we download a form off the internet and submit it to our line managers. Perhaps if it were a little more difficult, we'd have better luck.
Fine. I'll see if we can alter the current procedure slightly, and if that doesn't work, then we'll need to move to a plan B.
Question 28. You hear a conversation between two nurses. Now read the question.
Still here, are you, Linda?
Yes, I am. I'm on the graveyard shift tonight, Bobby. You're done now, aren't you?
Yeah, just finishing up some of my documentation from earlier, and then I'll call it a night. Just so you know, Bed 5's getting a little angsty about later. He's worried about how he won't be able to drift off again.
Can you blame him? He's really had a rough time this week. Wait, is he the hemophilic patient or the one with diabetes?
Mr. Wilson's diabetic. He'll need his insulin topping up, but that won't be until morning now. What time will you be doing the next round?
Midnight.
Okay, that's good. Please make sure you remember to disconnect Mr. Wilson's saline drip before then, otherwise he'll be fussing into the early hours. He's been assessed several times today, so he won't need any more of those, but everything else on his care plan needs to be attended to.
Got it. Thank you.
Question 29. You hear a morning briefing. Now read the question.
All right. Today we need to address some serious problems in this department. I don't know where to start, really. We've got so much that we need to remedy that it'll take weeks, if not months, to get us where we need to be. Ideally, we'll be able to increase the number of personnel devoted to the tasks we're working on, such as clearing up all the post-discharge paperwork that we've got piled up. However, I don't know if we'll be able to change people's job roles at such short notice. Never mind the fact that all of the larger rooms that will be able to accommodate large teams are all located on the other side of the ward. If anyone finds that they have a couple of hours spare this or next week, please make sure that you get in touch with either myself or Carla, okay?
Question 30. You hear a conversation between two nurses. Now read the question.
Are you coming to the school later? I've been asked to organise the vaccinations for the under-16s.
Oh, is that today?
Yes, why? Will that be a problem?
Not really. I'm just trying to organise my day. Can I ask you one thing, though?
Of course.
We've organised tetanus vaccinations at that school before, if I remember correctly. Now, if they've all been immunised against the flu, why are we having to give H1N1 vaccinations today?
I wondered the same thing, and you know what? It beats me. But that's what it says on the chart, so that's what we'll have to give them.
All right, no worries. Give me 10 minutes and I'll clear up the rest of my day and prep to go with you.
Part C. In this part of the test, you'll hear two different extracts. In each extract, you'll hear a healthcare practitioner talking about aspects of their work. For questions 31 to 42, choose answer A, B or C, which you think best fits according to what you hear. Extract 1, questions 31 to 36. You hear dietitian Catherine Weston delivering a presentation on diabolemia. You now have 90 seconds to read questions 31 to 36.
Hello, my name is Catherine Weston and I'm a dietitian with a keen interest in a little-known condition called diabolemia. The name is derived from a mixture of diabetes and bulimia, as it describes the situation where type 1 diabetics develop the behavioural characteristics of the aforementioned eating disorder. As insulin restriction is a significantly more dangerous act than calorie purging, the sooner something can be done about the countless lives being lost because of diabolemia, the better. To put things in context, it is estimated that approximately 400,000 people in the UK are living with T1. Whilst the exact number of people living with diabolemia is unknown, alarmingly up to 40% of sufferers, who are mainly female, aren't taking enough insulin to survive. With that acknowledged, it would be remiss not to mention that those affected are not exclusively women. A recent German study suggests that 11.2% of boys aged 19 and under are intentionally depriving themselves of insulin in a drive to be thin. Yet, despite the widespread reach of this condition, it is not as visible as other similar disorders, such as anorexia or bulimia nervosa. Part of the reason the condition is so low profile is the fact that the condition is not a recognised medical or psychiatric term, but rather it highlights the practice of reducing or eliminating insulin in a bid to lose weight. As diabetes sufferers cannot produce insulin but need it in order to survive, the practice of restricting their intake with the aim of losing weight is incredibly dangerous. Sufferers run incredibly high blood sugars, which has the potential to produce multiple irreversible diabetic complications. This can include neuronal, retinal and renal damage. The most common symptoms of the disease include irritability, decreased concentration and motivation. and diabetic ketoacidosis, all of which are analogous to diabetes. Rather eerily, by making the decision to cease treatment, sufferers are essentially turning the clock back on their condition. I do a lot of work with Diabetes UK in order to raise awareness of the signs and signals of diabolemia with friends and family of people with insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus. This type of outreach work was sparked by the many case studies of young people whose lives have been claimed by the disease. One such account is of the life of Amara, a 27-year-old who took her life after battling with the disease. Typically of people with the condition, Amara developed an unhealthy preoccupation with food. She also became increasingly uncomfortable taking her daily medication, comparing injecting her insulin to injecting fat into her body. Her sporadic insulin restriction then became a greater feature of her life. The unhealthy obsession with her diet led her to the discovery that despite not lowering her food intake because she had drastically reduced her medication, she was losing weight. The weight loss is a result of the body cells failing to absorb blood sugar, with the consequence of prolonged elevated blood sugar in the individual. This causes the organs to be saturated in glucose. Amara was found dead, having taken her life after a futile years-long struggle with diabetes. Her death highlights the crisis for the medical and diabetic communities, neither of which have the resources or systems of care in place to support such a nuanced disease. In fact, such tragic consequences are so severe and such stories are so tragic that early detection is a governmental priority. NHS England's clinical team have been involved in producing the NICE guidelines on eating disorders, devoting part of the report to managing people suffering from an eating disorder and diabetes concurrently. The guidelines have been distributed nationally in a bid to tackle the illness. Furthermore, the organisation is integrating psychological services with GP practices by placing 3,000 new mental health therapists and surgeries. In addition, other private and charitable organisations are also keen to play their part. A prominent example includes Jacqueline Allen, founder of national charity Diabetics with Eating Disorders. Allen is presently campaigning for the omission of insulin for weight loss purposes to be recognised as a mental illness. The theory is that increasing the condition's visibility, it will become easier to engage multidisciplinary teams, including endocrinologists, mental health professionals and specialists like myself who specialise in the condition, to provide a 360-degree treatment service. Until that is achieved, however, the road to medical and psychological recognition continues.
Extract 2, questions 37 to 42. You hear an interview with Dr. Janae Brown discussing a neurological condition. You now have 90 seconds to read questions 37 to 42.
Welcome to the Health Matters podcast. Joining me today is Dr. Janae Brown, all the way from the East Coast. Dr. Brown, thank you for flying in.
Thank you, Ricky. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I know that you deal with many neurological conditions, but I understand that today you'll be talking to our listeners about one in particular. Tell us, Dr. Brown, what is multiple sclerosis, and how many people have got it?
Multiple sclerosis is a neurovascular disease that affects the brain and the spinal cord. Usually, the nerve fibers of the central nervous system are protected by myelin. Myelin helps the nerve fibers to transfer messages faster between the brain and the rest of the body. When multiple sclerosis sets in, the immune system identifies myelin as foreign and in turn destroys it. The damage then interrupts the message pathway by suppressing the myelin completely or stripping some parts of it, leading to the formation of scars. The disease is lifelong once someone is diagnosed, though with proper specialized management, a person can survive for long. According to the United Kingdom's National Health Survey, there are more than 100,000 people diagnosed with multiple sclerosis annually.
Are there many risk factors of multiple sclerosis? And could you give us examples of the effect the condition can have on its sufferers?
Yes, there are several risk factors that are associated with multiple cases of sclerosis, such as gender, family history, geographical location, lifestyle, and vitamin D deficiency, among others. When the diseases are in one person in the family, the risk of passing the genes to the children is very high. Also, women are at a higher risk of developing MS. The risk is made higher due to the hormonal differences. Furthermore, in areas that are further from the equator, the risk of developing the disease is high in the regions that are more than 40 degrees. The condition affects people of all ages, but most people are diagnosed between the ages of 20 to 50 years old. In terms of lifestyle, smoking is also associated with the formation of multiple sclerosis, although admittedly more research is required in order to clarify the reason for this.
What are the main effects of MS?
MS affects the whole body depending on the nerve that is affected. Different nerves innervate different parts of the body. The main symptom is weakness or numbness in one or more limbs. This usually occurs on either side of the body or trunk, one at a time. When the optic nerve is affected, the patient may have prolonged problems with double vision accompanied by extreme pain. The person might also lose sight in one eye with time. The patient may experience Lhermitte's sign, that is a feeling of electric shock sensation around the neck during movement, as well as when one bends the neck forward. The patient may also present with a problem with their gait or body coordination. Fatigue and dizziness may also be a problem. When the nerves innervating the speech center are affected, the patient may develop slurred speech. The gastrointestinal function can be changed, as well as bladder function, especially incontinence problems.
Would you tell us a little bit about the diagnosis procedure?
Early diagnosis is preferable, Ricky, before the treatment of multiple sclerosis. Diagnosis methods range from laboratory tests and imaging tests such as magnetic resonance. For laboratory tests, the spinal fluid is tapped and taken for culturing and sensitivity. The liquid is drawn after lumbar puncture and carried out using sterilized equipment. This helps in knowing whether the cause is due to infection or not. Imaging helps in understanding the extent to which the disease has affected the nerves, especially within the brain.
It's all so fascinating. So, Dr. Brown, would you talk to us about the treatment options, what they are and their main aims too?
Yes, MS is chronic, and treatment options mainly involve management of the symptoms. The goals of treatment revolve around ensuring that patients recover from attacks as well as recurrent situations, as well as slowing the speed at which the disease progresses. For the treatment of seizures, the patient can be given corticosteroids and plasmapheresis can be done too. Corticosteroids reduce the inflammation of nerves. Examples include oral prednisolone and methylprednisolone, given through the vein. The process is mostly used in severe cases of the disease, especially when the symptoms are not improving through use of steroids. Beta interferons can also be used primarily in the relapsing remitting stages of the disease when it is still aggressive. Furthermore, other medication like this can be used in various stages of the disease.
That is the end of Part C. You now have 2 minutes to check your work.
you.